Welcome back.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Keep waiting, yeah. Keep waiting. Oh, Jesus, and I believe it. If you know, like I know, well, I done wait too long. He wants your love and emotion. Yeah. And Jesus waiting for you and me right now. Yeah. I tried a long time ago. You better believe me. Yeah. Let me tell you this. He wants your heart and soul. Straight down the holy road. Yeah. Don't let him catch you when your work is done. And Jesus waiting for you and I right now. Yeah. I don't know Jesus. Jesus, 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 Jesus. Yeah. Listen, don't be blind to his love. You will
Thank you, Sister
be
Andrea.
blind.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for those who hit that like tonight. 3:29 a.m. Sunday morning. Eastern Standard Time. Recording live from Detroit, Michigan. And this is our beginning of our SWS Read. We began with our reads of Marvin Gaye's ex-wife's book, After the Dance, and we were looking for evidence, not just the songwriter's secret, because when the songwriter's secret is present, we believe that there's some Luciferianism present. So we were looking for evidence of, I was especially looking for evidence concerning Janice because of her name, Janice, Project Janice, the meaning of Janice compared, or as it relates to Hermes, and I was looking to see if she was some sort of muse or implanted muse in his life. And it appeared that we found all of those things through our readings. And we had a ball, too, reading about Marvin's foolish ways. But that was just a bit of edutainment, and perhaps we'll have a similar thing going with Rick James' Glow, written by the same autobiographer, David Ritz. So let's do it kind of the way that we did it last time, and let's just start off with a little bit of an interview of young Rick James. You see the great difference here in young Rick James and old Rick James. One thing that he maintained, if you ask me, was the fruity look. That we have to give little Richard credit for giving it up after he got so old. But I even noticed that when Rick James was on the Dave Chappelle show doing the skits with Charlie Murphy, which were historic comic skits that helped solidify Dave Chappelle as a legend. And shortly after that legendary skit, Rick James was announced dead. And my understanding is there was some interview that he did in print. I remember being shown the interview in the studio. Some interview he did in print where he was obviously aware of some things, and maybe one could even surmise that he may have spilt too many beans in that interview. I'm going to find that interview while we're reading, during our readings of Glow. I'll find that. But before we look at the interviews that we all know from the Dave Chappelle show, which we would only look at little pieces of the interviews before I do the reading, let's look a little bit at a young Rick James. And then we're going to get to it.
We're in the process of changing the stage over for Van Morris, and I'm not quite sure how far we've got. Well, we can see what's going on now in the hall outside. It's obviously a complicated process because we've just had 13 musicians on stage and we're changing over for 12. Doesn't mean a difference of 1, that means a difference of 25, if you can work that. It's very complicated. I'm just getting some more information that Rick is going to come out in just a minute.
Okay.
Is he already there, Peter, or is he coming? Or, and I'll tell you what. I mean, I'll wait until he does come, and we'll see if we'll see what happens after that. We were going to play a video. Let's make that clear. Albrecht has just said it for everybody that was watching in German and also understands English that we were going to play a video from Muddy Waters. Everyone who's a fan of Muddy Waters, don't worry. We'll get around to showing that video after we've spoken with Rick. And perhaps I should point out at this point that Van Morrison, who's going to come onto the stage in about 20 minutes' time or so, is obviously someone who's been influenced by all kinds of music and musicians. Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits played on his last album. And Muddy Waters, who we'll hear from in a minute, has obviously been a big influence on him. But Van's music has developed to such a point that the influences just aren't detectable anymore. They're all there, but the music that he makes now is very, very much his own music. And in about 20 minutes' time, when the stage is ready, Albrecht.
Okay.
Make something up.
Und da wir uns ja jetzt hier in einer Live-Sendung befinden, dürfen wir ohne weiteres umstellen. Wir möchten jetzt nämlich doch das Interview mit Rick James zuerst machen und Muddy Waters wird dann danach kommen. Rick James steht genau, glaube ich, bereit hier. Ja. Alright.
You got a couple more lines to do before we come out there to you.
Eine Kommunikationsschwierigkeit. Ja, dann kannst du sie mal holen.
Ich gehe und guck mal, ob die da sind. Warte.
I'm busy with a super freak. I'll be there in 1 minute.
Ja, da sind sie schon. Ja. Hallo. Hallo. Hier.
Alles klar, wir haben jetzt Rick James mit uns. What's with the band, Rick? Are they going to stay down or they want to come out?
Yeah, with the band, with the fellas.
They're coming in, join us. Because we're going to have trouble going through everybody's names, right? Because it's a big band. But I mean, maybe you can present people as they come
Sure
out.
will.
As they come out. I tell you what, whilst we're waiting for them to come out, Albrecht is going to go and get them. I think we should probably start talking about the impressions that you had from tonight's concert. Obviously, it's the first concert that you've ever given in Europe.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you took the stage?
Well, before I took the stage.
Just prior to going out.
I was a little apprehensive, you know. I was a little, I mean, it's different playing places where you never played, you know, and you don't know how the reaction is going to be, you know. Fucking strange. But it was great once we got out there.
Okay, let me explain it in German. Ich habe ihn gefragt, was so für Eindrücke hatte, kurz davor, als auf die Bühne ging. Und er meinte, war ein bisschen skeptisch. Er hat zum ersten Mal hier in Europa gespielt, wusste nicht, was auf ihn zukommt. Es war ein bisschen merkwürdig, hat er gesagt, aber nachher, es war ganz toll. What did you expect the people to be like? Did you expect them to react to you in the way that they did, to really be a part of what was going on stage?
No, I didn't. Because we didn't know, you know. Like over in the States, it's people like are real crazy before we get on, you know. You can really hear, you know, people act real, you know, loud and they're really
the glitter all over his face, man.
I was telling Peter Rochelle, you know, they didn't know not many people I didn't think knew our songs and stuff, you know. So, but it was incredible, you know. I think they liked the funk. They enjoyed.
And we're going to end on that note. Okay, now, let's get into this. And yes, the universal P-Funk symbol and the symbol for the Church of Satan, or the symbol that we saw popularized by Anton LaVey's pictures in his rituals in the Church of Satan, the Manu Coronado, is the same symbol. And this symbol was revived by Africa Bambaataa during the electro-funk era. And it's no coincidence that all of these individuals who throw up these hand signs appear to have these connections to Lucifer, Luciferian intentions, and brotherhoods, and the like. So here we are, Glow, the autobiography of Rick James, with David Ritz. I met Rick James in Marvin Gaye's studio on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood in 1979. Marvin was 40, Rick was 31, and I was 35. Rick was riding high. Chocolate E, let's ride. Peace and blessings. Good to see you. Says Rick was riding high. His Come Get It album with the hits You and I, and Mary Jane had gone double platinum. Rick later described this time. My royalties bought me a mansion once owned by William Randolph Hearst with a sunken living room and a dramatic fireplace that looked like it came out of Citizen Kane. His second album, Bustin' Out of L7, was a runaway smash, and in the kingdom of Motown, he was the newly crowned prince. Once upon a time, Marvin had been a prince himself. Now, this is the same guy who wrote Marvin's autobiography and his ex-wife's autobiography. If that's a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. If that's not a conflict of interest. But this same guy now, he's going to dump on... This is his job. This is David Ritz's job, to create the legends. The old gods being killed off by the new gods and all of that, to help to write the music business lore. He's got a score of autobiographies. He did Aretha's. But anyway, once upon a time, Marvin had been a prince himself, but in the late 70s, he was struggling to regain commercial success. It had been 2 years since his last hit, the Nouvelle Disco Got to Give It Up, an autographical meditation on his reluctance to dance. That night, Rick was dancing all over Marvin's studio. He wore a tiny silver cocaine spoon around his neck, and dipping into his bag of blow, he freely offered up samples. I'm Rick James. I got the good stuff. Here, try this out. I was there as Gaye's biographer, learning as much as I could about Marvin's life, which in those days revolved around the studio. Marvin was low-key, but having recently completed the autobiography of Ray Charles, I was accustomed to a supercharged personality. I was not, though, accustomed to anyone as supercharged as Rick. His energy was outrageous. He spoke in streams of consciousness that revealed a brilliant mind. He spoke nonstop. He was respectful of Marvin, whom he referred to as the master. But knowing that Gaye was self-conscious about having hit 40, he also liked to needle him by calling him Uncle Marvin. Okay. And you know Rick James hated Prince. He gonna have something to say about Prince. It says, when Rick asked to hear what Marvin was working on, Gaye played Dance and Be Happy from the unreleased Love Man, an album that would be reworked several times and finally issued as In Our Lifetime, an uncompromising view of an impending apocalypse. Rick liked what he heard, but Marvin didn't. It's superficial, said Gaye. Sometimes superficial sells, said James. But substantive sells even more, Marvin argued. I like substantive, said Rick. What do you think about this substance I have right here? Marvin laughed. It's good, he said. It's all good, Rick agreed. Marvin's tracks played over the banter. The funk is deep, said Rick. Substantially deep, but I haven't gotten the story straight. That's why this man is here to help me figure out the story. That's when Marvin formally introduced me to Rick. When that book comes out, said Rick, I'm going to be the first to read it. When 6 years later the book Divided Soul, The Life of Marvin Gaye did come out, Rick was among the first people to call me with his reaction. Marvin's story is incredible, he said. But where do you hear mine? My story will blow you away. It did. When we got together on several occasions, I started taking notes. I couldn't write fast enough. Rick's story was off the charts, an epic of music, crime, and sex. He didn't give me the whole picture, but enough to whet my appetite. Rick had great musical focus, but limited conversational focus. He'd start stories, build them up, and then, reminded of another story, switch tracks. At times, he'd have 4 stories going at once. He might not finish any of them. One thing, though, was clear. He contained stories like the oceans contain fish. Reading Divided Soul, Rick was more motivated than ever to write his own book. Marvin's story ends in tragedy, said Rick, but mine will end in triumph. There were, to be sure, more triumphs in store for Rick, and in the coming years he called me several times to make sure I took note of them. The book will get done, he said. I really want to get started. But that didn't happen until the 90s, when a prison sentence gave Rick the literary focus he might otherwise never have experienced. I was asked to write an essay to accomplish a multi-CD overview of James' career. I was asked to write an essay to accompany a multi-CD overview of James's career. I readily agreed, seeing it as a chance to reconnect with Rick. A long series of prison interviews ensued, many in person, many more on the phone. During the first, Rick told me that he had been studying biographies and reread the ones I did on Marvin and Ray Charles. He was finally and firmly committed to do one of his own. Would I help? I was only too glad. I used this 8-week period of face-to-face encounters with Rick to form the basis of what I hoped would be his autobiography. While he was still incarcerated, the CD set came out, busting out the best of Rick James, along with my essay, The Musical Memoirs of a Super Freak, largely written in Rick's voice. He sent me a message that he liked the essay and had high hopes for the book that we would write together. I was optimistic about completing the project based on not only the large amounts of intimate interview material I had accumulated, but also Rick's willingness to bare his soul. When he was released from prison in 1996, he had served 2 years and 23 days of his 5-year sentence. He was elated and called me a month later, eager for us to get together and work on the book. He mailed me several hundred pages of notes and partial chapters that he had written in prison. The story was not organized chronologically. There were major gaps and more than a few breakdowns in logic. Yet I was encouraged because there was so much to work with. Rick was serious about telling his story. Another year passed before he called me. He was ready to release a new album, Urban Rhapsody, and wanted me to come in the studio to hear it. The music was great, and like your typical writer, I was gratified to see that on the studio console were copies of autobiographies I had written with B.B. King and Etta James. I haven't disappeared, said Rick. I've been keeping up with you through your books. I just had to get this music out. We'll get to work. I'll call you in a few weeks. We had several long conversations after that, during which we discussed the structure of the book and several new passages he had written. Then his calls stopped. I tried contacting him dozens of times. Now, this is a foreword written by the writer. I bet he's trying to excuse himself, probably for just using this stuff the way he wants to. You know, Aretha got mad at David Ritz about her book. Let's see. It says, I haven't disappeared, but that's Aretha. She might get mad about anything. It says, I haven't disappeared. Okay, it says, I tried contacting him dozens of times. A couple of those times we connected, but he sounded increasingly remote. The prospect of our putting his autobiography in publishable shape seemed more and more distant. Through mutual friends, I heard that his struggles with drugs had deepened. In 2004, he called to ask whether I had caught him on Chappelle's show, where Dave Chappelle, playing Rick, uttered the immortal line, "I'm Rick James." I had watched him, and though the skit was funny, I saw tremendous pain in Rick's eyes. He looked like a defeated man. He said that because he was back in the public eye, it was time to do more work on his book. He was depressed because his marriage to Tanya Hijazi, the great love of his life, had collapsed. Their divorce became official in the summer of 2004. On August 6th of that year, a friend called to say that Rick had passed. The papers called it pulmonary and cardiac failure. I thought of what Rick had said 25 years earlier about avoiding what Marvin Gaye did not avoid, a tragic end. I went to the phonograph and put on "Standing on the Top," the song Rick had written and produced for the Temptations reunion album, and one of his best songs too, I might add. I had a happy memory of watching Rick rehearse that group, his favorite, back in the early 80s when the record was cut. The session had been chaotic but creative, with Rick in possession of his full musical powers. That day, he experienced tremendous satisfaction, and I also believe David Ritz can write these because he understands what's going on in the spirit realm with these artists. Too often his wording will give that away. Rick James was a major player in the highly competitive game of rhythm and blues, where only the most talented survive. In that earlier essay I wrote, "Between Parliament and Prince," Rick carried the banner of black pop over that fertile territory known as funk. As the 70s melted into the 80s, he was bad, super bad, the baddest of the bad. His orchestrations were brilliant, his shows spectacular. He worked in the celebrated R&B instrumental tradition, percussive guitar riffs, busy bass line, syncopated horn punches, extending from Louis Jordan, Ray Charles, Ike Turner, James Brown, the Memphis Horns, Johnny Guitar Watson, Sly Stone, and George Clinton. Rick honored the tradition and added, Wait a minute. Okay. So the last 2 pages of the foreword are gone. But let's jump to chapter 1. That was from the foreword by David Ritz, and that's okay. We don't have the rest of that. But let's start. Oh boy! All right, and I thank you for hanging in there with us tonight. And I thank you if you hit that like. Now here's the beginning. All right, locked up. Okay, chapter 1, and we'll read the first few pages of this, and then we're gonna dismiss. Locked up. Chapter 1. I'm having these crazy dreams in jail. The dreams are so vivid, so wildly creative that I know God is in charge of my imagination. I couldn't dream up this shit without God. God has to be the author of my dreams. In one dream, I'm with Miles Davis. We're dressed like African princes. Our robes are blue and gold. Miles is singing and I'm playing trumpet. Black angels are surrounding us. We're bathed in sunlight. We're on top of the Empire State Building and everyone in the city of New York can hear us. The people are assembled on the street. They're hanging out their windows and waving flags from office buildings. Helicopters are flying over us, but our music is so powerful that we drown out all the noise. Our music is some symphony that has the angels dancing in the sky. Didn't know you could play jazz so good, Miles says to me. Didn't know you could sing so funky, I say to him. The music is so beautiful I start crying through Miles' horn. Someone says, the hospitals are clearing out. The patients are healed. Someone else says, the churches are clearing. The congregations are in the streets. I told you, says Miles. I told you we could do it. When I put the trumpet to my lips again, the horn turns into a megaphone. When I start to speak, I hear the voice of my mother. Cocaine is a hell of a drug. My son has the answer, she says. Miles gave him the answer. Listen to my son. I turn to Miles, who rarely smiles, and see that he's smiling. When I wake up from this dream, I am smiling, but I'm still in jail. This long stay in jail is the first time I'm remembering my dreams. I'm not even sure I had dreams before they put my ass behind bars. My mind was clogged up with cocaine. Not just any cocaine, but cocaine strong enough to fuel jet engines. I was a jet engine that got dislodged from the plane of my brain. I crashed to the ground and broke into a million pieces. When the pieces magically came back together, the engine could work again, but the fuel was no longer cocaine. The fuel was something I hadn't used since I was a little boy. I'd call it natural energy and natural drive. It's a natural restlessness to see and explore and learn. Couldn't do any of that exploring when I was ripping and running through the world of intoxicants. Didn't want to explore, just wanted to stay high. So ain't this a bee? My highs are my dreams. My dreams are my escape, and my imagination is my way out of prison. If you break down the word imagination, I guess it means manufacturing images. Dreaming is the purest form of that process, so for as long as I'm locked up, I'm going to write down my dreams. I'm also going to write down my life. I've always wanted to write my own life story, but outside of prison, I could never sit down and be quiet. My energy was scattered. I was always going in a dozen different directions at once, but now I got no choice. Got nowhere to go or nothing to do. I'm forced to read. And in reading, especially about the lives of people I relate to, I get excited. I read about Charlie Parker, Nat King Cole, Bob Marley, and Malcolm X, and I understand exactly why their lives went the way that they did. I see their F-ups as my F-ups. I see their talents as my talents. Sometimes talent is so big it takes you to places that you just don't understand. Super talent doesn't take you to the land of peace. It takes you to crazy land. And if you ain't emotionally grounded in something rock solid, you're going to get annihilated. I got annihilated. Now I'm getting healed. And part of the healing is dreaming, remembering, and writing. I can write in peace because I don't have access to my lethal vices. Being a celebrity in jail also means I have protectors who keep the bad cats away from me. They see I'm serious about writing and form a shield around me. In prison, I've gravitated toward the bookish brothers. I've met Muslims who have taken me deep into the Quran. I love and respect Islam. I was raised Catholic but never really studied the Bible till late in life. The Christian brothers in prison have given me a new way to look at the word. A Jewish man has been talking about Kabbalah, mysticism with wisdom of its own. Don't worry, I ain't going to shove no religion down your throat. I'm not using this book to win converts. I'm just using the book to manufacture images from my past. I just want to look at old pictures, lay them out there like a jigsaw puzzle, see if I can make the pieces fit. See if I can make some sense of a life of nonsense and understand how I got to be caged up like an animal. I am an animal, a effing wild animal. I lost my human soul. Oh! There it is. Lord forgive me, I'm just repeating what he said. I am an animal, a effing wild animal. I lost my human soul. I lost my human mind. But in this animal cage, my intention is to win back my humanity. Animals can't write. I can. I will. Here goes. Okay. Okay, we're missing 2 pages here. It says, okay, it says 12, that's 12. Pages 13 to 14 are not shown in this preview. Okay. I'm going to have a physical copy next week. Do y'all want to continue here? Or do you want to, at 30 minutes, I think we're going to stop. And we're going to pick up from there next week. I have the physical copy in my hand. Okay, so right after here goes, okay? Huh? People say keep going. Please continue. Oh, Lord, okay. A little bit longer. Just a little bit longer, okay? Yeah, right. So that you have to buy the book. That makes perfect sense. So I mean, at this point, we missed one page from the forward. I usually skip the forward when I'm reading anyway. But we missed one page from the forward. I don't want to miss any pages from the story. So that's why I don't want to go forward. Because we're going to miss, after he says, here goes. How about that? Isn't that better? Isn't it better to do that way so we don't miss nothing? Well, next time you got me read page 13 and 14 and then pick up from wherever we leave off tonight. Is that what you like? Let's wait then. Yeah, let's wait. Let's wait so we had a story straight. But so far, I think it's going to be a doozy. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we'll have something to look forward to next week. So next week we're gonna pick up from there. We know what page we're on. We're on page 13, right? It should be easy to remember that. Isn't that what I said? Yeah. I just think that's best. It's one thing to miss a page out of the prologue, but we don't want to miss when he says here goes. I want to hear exactly what went next. So yes, so that's where we're at. We're at page 13. We're at page 13. How fitting. After he says he lost his soul, he lost his human soul. Well, no, I just think, in the interest of continuity and order, we'll pick it up next time, and I will have the physical copy in my hand. Okay. If I had a read ahead, I would have known that there's going to be pages missing, but I wasn't thinking about that. That made perfect sense. Okay. Right, King Dare said lost. He probably couldn't say soul. Right. He didn't want to give it all the way. In that his human soul. Isn't it something he used that actual terminology? I mean, in the first chapter of the book. Isn't that interesting? Okay, yeah. Let's end it with a Rick James song if that's what y'all want to do. Fool on the Street. I'm not familiar with that one. I was gonna maybe play is that one? Lucy's rap for the songwriter's secret, but we'll save that for the next songwriter's secret. We can do that. Is that one of his tunes, Mike Jr.? Because I'm not familiar with that. I know some Rick James, but I don't know that one. That must be later. Brother Jonathan, you funny. He say you have to be careful when plugging that accent might carry over. Anyone here ever talked with an accent for a time that they couldn't stop? And the bad thing about it is I'd be walking around Detroit all day talking like that and wouldn't nobody think it was nothing no different. What a shame. Yep. But yes. Okay. She's standing on the top. I mean, if I got to pick, it's Motowned out. Okay. L7. Uh-oh. Okay, we will be praying for Shannon. Grace, keep it together. If you want to send me more details, please do that to the email address that's in all of the descriptions. brothermentheo@gmail.com. So we can be sure and have that on the list when the prayer warriors assemble. Please do. It's easier for me to remember if folks send me their request. Because as the chats are going by, I'm missing 50% of what's going through the chat. Because I'm looking up to do things like this and that. Peace and blessings, Sister Laura. Yeah, we were just playing. We were doing our songwriter secret reading, which folks had elected to be Rick James' Glow. All three David Ritz books. Well, the last one was a David Ritz book. He's the go-to biographer for the Brotherhood. So David Ritz understands the things going on behind the scenes, the occult things behind the scenes, but of course he can't tell about them. But through his writing style, he often gives things away by his writing style. And so I noticed that when I read Divided Soul, the book he did for Marvin Gaye, and I suggested that we read After the Dance, the book Marvin Gaye's wife wrote with David Ritz. And then after that, I said, well, since this one was so telling, let's look at either Aretha, a David Ritz book, or Glow, a David Ritz book about Rick James. Aretha's is called Respect, and Glow's is Rick James. So that's what we just did. We read that, and that's our last one for the night. But thank goodness everything is recorded, and I hope that most of it is recorded all right, because we did have some storms overhead and got a little buffering. Folks were suffering a bit of buffering, but not terrible and not enough to taint the messages from tonight. So I thank folks who was here and who were able to check it out, and I thank all of you who are going to check it out and are checking it out on the playback. I appreciate you. And continue to stand. Wait on the Lord. You can't stand on the top. He does. Good night. Who is it in me? What's going on? And thank you, Sister Erica, and all the watchmen on the wall. Who you talking about, Lynn? Oh, that's a hymn. Brother Tyree. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna get in touch with him. We had some brothers and sisters who had stepped in and helped him out before, so we'll see what's going on. You watch out for our own here. As much as we can, how we can. But anyway, so that was that. And for those who don't, understand, Rick James, we joke about his hair and this, that, and the third, but as far as his musical ability, he was a producer, a musician, and a singer, and an entertainer. He produced this. This is him on the beat. This is him playing the music, and he's singing on the song. And so, he had talent. He had talent that afforded him to be so outrageous and to do as thou wilt to the degree that he did, till he was dead. And that's the bottom line of what we do when we examine these entertainers and their tragic ends. It's all about living by the sword and dying by that same sword. Many times he threw up that sign. They couldn't save him from whatever it is that they said took him out. If they didn't take him out themselves. So the Lord gave him the talent. He didn't give the Lord the talent back. The Temptations was through, you know, as far as, you know, the generation that was Rick James' generation wasn't listening to the Temptations. This was how to make them uncles funky at that time. Yeah. I really wasn't going to play no more Rick James. I didn't want to play that. But yeah, next time we'll look at Fool on the Street for the next broadcast. Whew. I was about to have a funk relapse. Yeah, I don't understand. I can't listen to that type of stuff no more. I will have a funk relapse in here. We playing Funkadelic and telling you how it's about us getting on the right vibration. No. Let's stay on status. Let's stay focused. Philippians 4:8. Love you. Peace and love to you, Zion. And yeah, next time, Mike Jr., that'll be the Rick James song that we look at. Fool on the Street. I didn't know they made old Wendy Williams put some respect on their names. But then they let Snoop take it off. Oh well. Butch Small, his son is DJ Los, who was instrumental in taking me out of Dr. York. I called him Butch Carlos Small. His son is Detroit's DJ Los. He was one of the two Israelite brothers that I knew. But now, it is always a blessing and an honor to pray for you, big nephew Tyree. And I'm going to keep you and your sister in my prayers as well. And I thank all of those who tried to reach out to help you before. In Jesus' name.
I thank the Lord, He made my way. Standing there when I'm up, lift me up when I'm down. Lord, He never failed me. He's always around. That's why I'm free. Oh, yes, I am. Oh, Lord, praise God, I am. Hey.
And as far as when they throw up the hand sign, I remember Yash Karas saying that that's how they get paid. And I don't know where that information came from, because I've never found that information myself, but it makes sense when you look at the circumstances when they take those pictures and when they throw up those signs and symbols. I believe it is some part of something contractual. Maybe you get a bonus if you throw up the Manu during your photo shoot, or if you cover up one eye, something like that. I don't know. And Sister Nikisha, we're going to get you some help. We're going to figure out exactly what's needed, and we're going to make sure that need is filled. In Jesus' name. And we can end like this. God bless you all, and God bless you, Sister Roti. Thank you, and God bless you, Sister Katina. And Sister Kagan Kong, I'm still going to contact you on that. And for everybody coming out to 7-7, if you have any questions, please email me concerning it. But everything is as I last said that it was. No new developments, no changes.
Sing
That's a that's good perception and discernment, King Des, and I'm going to consider that too because you know what they call rapper hands, right? When you freestyling or when you just saying a verse or watching a rapper in a video, his hand game, you know, the rapper hands. Your rapper hands are supposed to be part of your game as an MC. And the rapper hands, you know, quite often, you know, I mean, they're positioned. And the Manu is one of the favorite positions to have your hands in when you flowing. It's not the only one. But it brings to mind what you're saying about the spirit causing your hands to form a particular position without you meaning to. The rapper hands, I believe, were something that came to people spiritually. I don't think there was any class on it, at least not at first. There may be now. Absolutely. Gang signs are the same thing as the Manu Coronado. These are mudras, gang signs, masonic symbols and signs, same thing. The same things showing up in various forms and walks of life. And what they say that these things are for is sigil magic that goes two ways. It makes you a vessel to allow for certain entities to enter into you like an antenna. You're positioning your digits like antenna to allow for certain things to enter in. And there's ways that you can do that. The Manu is one of those ways. It also works the other way. It projects by it being a hypnotic symbol. These are things that are supposed to cause people to, like for instance, when you see Hitler or Jay-Z doing the rock symbol, it's a pyramid. It's to trap you inside or supposedly to lock your attention in. And the Mano Coronado is, I believe, to induce you to open up to whatever spirit it is that they're trying to push out. You know, if you think about it, in concert situations, all the entertainer has to do is throw it up, and the whole crowd throws it up. And this is not exclusive to rock and roll music anymore. So it's about influence and power and influence. And the devil wanting you to, by hook or by crook, knowingly or unknowingly, form yourself into the right antenna positions for his agents to enter into you. Yes, gang signs are demonic. Brotherhoods are demonic. Fraternities are demonic. All of these things that use these hand signs are demonic. That's what we're saying. These are all demonic demonic areas of life. And they use these hand signs, whether they know they're demonic or not, it doesn't matter. It's what they are. The rock and roller on stage in a garage band that's getting their first debut or opening performance may not know what the sign is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change what the result of it. The audience member who throws his hand up because he sees Lil Uzi Vert doing it and he decides to do it too, or because he sees Rick James doing it and he decides to do it too, he has just made an agreement with the spirit realm to allow the same spirits in that possess the entertainer to possess them, the listener. That's the bottom line. Doesn't matter whether they know it or not. Absolutely, Sister Tanya. Some of the hand signs are similar. Some of the hand signs, and like out here in the Midwest, where you have those particular Midwest gangs that people know the names of, their symbols and their graffiti is very occult. it's so occult. I've been looking at it for years and thinking to myself, somebody teaches them this. Some high-level warlock or witch gets a hold to a gang leader and teaches them this. And they give them the code. You know, they give them a code book or some code key and show them, hey, okay, this is going to be y'all writing. I met a Crip. Me and him was in the same program together. He was from Compton, and he said he was a Crip, and he wore blue all the time, whatever. He had a crazy eye like Ice Cube, and he talked with that West Coast accent, so we believed him. But anyway, he was showing me a letter he was writing to one of his friends, and he showed me how he didn't write no B's in the letter, and it was a particular way that the C was written, and it was some words that wasn't spelled the way that I know them to be spelled at all. So somebody taught that system to somebody. It didn't all come from whatever Tookie Williams was taught, but going all the way back to the beginning of these organizations. These was community organizations. Well, don't they say the Shriners are a community organization? So all of these secret societies, they all at the end of the day are blocks in the brick that is the Great Pyramid that symbolizes the great work, the magnum opus of the New World Order, the so-called Illuminati, or the 13 leading families within it. All of these secret things are just bricks beneath that all-seeing eye. So they have the same practices. They may call them something different. In Hinduism, they'll call a hand sign what it is, a mudra. In gang speak, they call it a gang sign. It's the same thing. In rock and roll, they call it the rock on sign, right? In funk, they call it the P-funk sign. In the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey, they call it the Manu Coronado. Doesn't matter what it's called. They all do the same thing. They change the name, but the game's the same. And we're going to end on that note. We almost hit 1 hour. Right on, Brother John. That's another one. I hate to say it. It's another one. Sign language. Again, the people that developed sign language, whoever came up, Helen Keller, whatever. The people that developed the language, all of the official people involved with that. Tupac's West Side symbol. That's a stylized 666. It's a W. VVV. That's a W. Vol. So yeah, it doesn't matter. They got a million different ways to do it. But yep, absolutely. That's another one, Brother John, without a doubt. Yep, I love you. It's to say I love you to Lucifer. And again, that does not mean that if your little cousin is learning sign language, you tell them they can't tell nobody I love you because don't strain at a gnat. To the pure, all things are pure. You pray for their protection and the Holy Spirit's direction, and they'll show you how to give correction when and if you should. Do all things in truth and love. Amen. Amen. There's a lot to Helen Keller's story that didn't add up. She may have just been a poster child or a figurehead or a fairy tale. She may have been mythical. But like Uncle Sam, we know there was no Uncle Sam, but there was an Uncle Sam that worked on a ship. Supposedly, the name came from him. Blah blah blah. But she may just really be something like that. A contrived personage that they can use to be the face of the deaf or the blind. And you can use her and you can say, hey, she invented this and she invented that. And everybody's like, oh, well, isn't that nice? And would nobody ever think twice, right? How slick. It's more subtle than any of the beasts of the field. Yep, she could have been born into it. That's right, Secret Service. Like my grandma used to say, ain't no telling. And that's what I'm going to say. But yes, that falls in line too. A man that talks with his hands. Doesn't Proverbs talk about that? Isn't that in Proverbs? Doesn't it warn against that as saying that's a sneaky man? We ain't talking about Terminator X. All right, y'all. Good night, and I'll check y'all on Wednesday. And before then, if you sent me emails or correspondences, or if there's things that we need to
One, two, three,
business
four.
we need to finish.
After the rain and after the pain, there will always be some kind of gain, some kind of gain. Don't you ever give up until the day is done. I know just one who brings the sun. Do you believe me? Just one. Oh yeah, who brings the sun? Listen, after you cried and after you tried, don't never lose your universal pride into each life. The Lord said some rain must fall. I know just one, who brings sun. Do you believe me? Oh, well.
Psalm 4 and 8 and Proverbs 3 and 24, sweet sleep. I pray and ask in the authority of the Lord Jesus Christ. Be bound to everyone who was in attendance tonight, everybody within the sound of my voice. Lord, we ask that you would please bind to that sweet sleep, sweet dreams. And bind to that sweet sleep and sweet dreams are blessed. Complete rest, and let us wake up rejuvenated and refreshed and ready to do our best against any test. Father, we thank you, Heavenly Father, Lord God of glory, for all that you've done for us thus far. We just ask that you continue to bind to us the joy of the Lord, which is our strength, and merry heart to do our bodies to feel like a medicine, the oil of joy and gladness to wash away all madness and sadness, and the garment of praise to lift off the spirit of heaviness for all of our nights and our days, Father, and help us to be able to make it through every trial and tribulation. We can be tried by the fire and come out as pure gold. In Jesus' name, we touch and we agree, and we call it done. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, the Son. Amen and amen. Thank you, Father. Absolutely right, Sister Kanga Kong. Absolutely right. It's how the devil keeps his pyramid tight and lined up. Somebody reckon is skipping. Hallelujah. Good night to you. Amen. We thank you, Father, for the fire. We thank you for the fire. It's going to take us higher.